Welcome back to the Acoustic Shop channel. Today we are having a very special guest. I'm really excited. We're going to be having Marcel with Lessons with Marcel here today. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff, including best beginner flat pick guitar, or what we recommend as a good flat pick guitar. Marcel, are you ready for this project?
I'm so excited to be here in person. It's just going to be a good time to, sit with someone in real life and just get down to the nitty gritty. You know what I'm saying?
It'll be great. We'll do this right after this. Well, here we are one more time. And again, a super special guest. So glad to have you, Marcel. This is going to be a whole bunch of fun. Everybody who has not yet subscribed to your channel needs to do so. Lessons with Marcel. This is great stuff. One of my favorite new channels. You have hit so many cool subjects lately that I have thoroughly enjoyed and had great explanations. I've really enjoyed having this extra line of content. So thank you for doing it. And thanks for being with us today.
No, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the the plug to the subscribers too. That's important. We're on YouTube, right? You have to ask people to subscribe.
You have to. So yeah, do it now. Do it here. In fact, actually, before you talk about his channel, subscribe to this one, because this one is it. No, we definitely appreciate
you did it in the wrong order. You're asking people to subscribe to my channel. They're on your channel. Subscribe to this channel.
But that's because I love you so much. I have to put it out and just really make sure everybody understands how important it is. And besides that, we already know nobody cares about our channel except for me. I'm actually the biggest subscriber of our channel. I sit and watch myself all day long. It is a whole bunch of fun. I have learned so many things from myself. So,
well, that might be one thing we don't share.
Okay, well, there you go. You should enjoy it anyway. You have had such a really, again, like I said, a really cool effect on the flat picking world, because it's another alternative with actual instruction and also some really cool entertaining stuff. And I'm so glad to have you in here, because we were going to talk about guitars. And I know you get this question a lot. We get it a lot. I'm a flat picker, especially right now. Man, there are so many new flat pickers out here right now.
Oh, man.
It is going crazy. And it's young people, it's older people, it's people who are discovering music for the first time, and they're just really getting into it. So now I'm getting, hey, what kind of guitar do I need? Obviously, everybody's saying, yeah, you need to buy a Martin D28. Well, that's not necessarily the case. We're going to kind of chat a little bit about that and see what it is you expect to see. And again, we're not necessarily going into brands. We'll talk about some brands, some recommendations and things, but what kind of things do you think a beginner, intermediate flat picker who's just kind of really decided this is the world I want to be in, what kind of things do you think they need to be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a new fan, you're listening to Billy Strings, Molly Tuttle, any of the very popular guitar players right now. They're like all guitar players, and you're thinking about getting into bluegrass. Yeah, the few things that you should look out for is you definitely want a flat top guitar. You don't want an arch top. You don't want any F holes. You want a round sound hole, flat top guitar with a normal bridge on it. And you probably want a Dreadnought shaped guitar too.
Probably.
If you can,
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're all right. I mean, I think if you can check all those boxes, you're at least in the right lane starting out. There's lots of crazy guitar shapes out there. There's lots of bizarre models, and the bluegrass jammers, they can spot you from a mile away, right? They'll see that you're coming in, and if you can get a Dreadnought, it would help a lot.
It does, and I think that's part of it too. It's what we expect to see out of these players. Right. Here's the deal: 9 times out of 10, the guitar players that are in the flat pick world are going to be working a Dreadnought, something similar to this. This is probably by far the most popular body style of acoustic flat top guitars. This is kind of the, I tell people in the store all the time, this is the I can do everything. It's the most popular shape. It's what a beginner, when they think of flat top acoustic guitars, this is what they think of 9 times out of 10. So it's become the standard for our industry, and I think for a good reason. It's big, it's loud, it's got lots of low end, and we're in acoustic music. We're trying to do, yes, there are people that plug in. Yes, there are people that have microphones, but especially if you're at a beginner, intermediate stage, you're trying to play with other people. So you need that power. You need that extra oomph. And so a Dreadnought probably in your wheelhouse and a necessity for you.
You were bringing up how much volume is needed when you're competing with sort of banjos and fiddles. You want to be heard a little bit. I think the top of the guitar makes a big difference in that too. What would you say about recommendations for the top?
Usually, the most popular ones are going to be spruce tops. There's mahogany tops. A mahogany top tends to warm it and kind of mellow out a guitar. So even though you got that big Dreadnought, that top with a mahogany top is going to be a softer one. And that's not necessarily wrong, but probably not the best option. Again, a spruce top, especially a Sitka spruce top in most cases, especially when we're talking intermediate beginner level instruments, price points, is going to be a Sitka spruce top. It just has more flexibility, going to give you more high-end brightness to it, which is something I talk about a lot, is perceived volume. A lot of times you can have something that has lots of volume, but if it doesn't have that high end, the brightness that goes along with it, as human beings, our hearing kind of thinks of that high end sound as loudness. My analogy I use a lot is if you're at a concert and there's a feedback going off and it's a low rumble, it's uncomfortable, but nobody sits there and grabs their ears usually. But if there's a high frequency squeal, everybody grabs their ears, and it's uncomfortable, and that's just not necessarily any louder. It's just a frequency that does not feel comfortable. And I'm not saying that all high frequencies should sound uncomfortable, and your guitar should be loud and uncomfortable. No, what I'm saying is that it should be, those frequencies tend to be perceived as louder. And again, in those group settings and stuff when you're playing with other people, probably a great thing to have.
If you're trying out a new guitar, sometimes there's a weird effect that happens where you're playing the guitar and all the sound is going away from you. Sometimes it's a little hard to hear.
That's absolutely the truth.
What that guitar is doing. And if you find yourself in that situation, you hear us talking about how loud these guitars are. Maybe you're playing your Dreadnought at home and you're thinking, man, it's not that loud. If you get up against a wall so all that sound is reflected back at you, if you get someone else to play that guitar and you stand in front of it, you'll hear it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I would say another thing to really pay, I go through my 5 points. My favorite, I don't even know if they're 5. There could be 4 or 3. I'm not even sure how many of these are. The first one there's 5, 4, 3, somewhere in there. I don't know how many. We're going to count these after the end. Editing is going to make this great. They're going to tell me how many points I have for the things you should be looking for in a guitar. That's why we have this team. They know that John's going to ramble about a bunch of things, and they got to make coherent, space about it. So it'll work in the end. The thing I talk to all guitar players for any style of music, but especially if you're looking for a flat picking guitar, we need that volume, we need that power. So the first thing you're going to hear a lot about is laminate woods versus solid woods. And again, laminate is just a big fancy term for plywood. And lately it's even got even crazier. I don't know if you've heard this one much. Layered. Have you heard that term very much anymore in guitars?
No, I have not. I was going to bring up the term HPL, the high pressure.
HPL. Laminate. There's another one that is a laminate too, as well. Layered has been a new one, and it's become unique. So I'll explain that real quick. Laminate is plywood. Plywood is 3 or more sheets of wood, cross-grained, glue in between, pressed together. It is very strong. It is very, it's got more strength to it, less apt to crack. So there are advantages physically of that. But for sound, we're trying to make instruments that make sound waves, and that's vibration. And multiple layers of wood glued together, it's not going to be so good. But it brings the cost down quite a bit.
It does bring the cost down quite a bit. Those instruments always stand up to the weather really well. There's sort of other benefits that you get, like Those guitars make great campfire guitars too. You know, sort of something
True.
you're okay with bringing out. If it's a little hotter, or a little sweatier, or a little colder, and you're okay with bringing that guitar out, that would be a good choice. So, you know, maybe if you are going to a lot of festivals or something, maybe you don't want to take the 1950, D18 or whatever out.
Oh, absolutely,
Maybe
yeah.
that would be the
I think we all have one of those guitars. I'm assuming you have one of those guitars that's a less worry about guitar, something that you don't, freak out when you take it out in the inclement weather areas. And again, like you said, laminate's a really good choice. I tend to recommend a solid wood top though. And here's why. This is your soundboard. This is where most of the sound's coming from, is this top of the guitar. And for that, since about 75% of that tone and volume's coming from here, I would prefer to do that. And usually that space between an all laminate guitar and a solid top, laminate sides and back, isn't a dramatic price increase. It is an increase, obviously, but you're taking 75% of the body and making it the lesser expensive material. So for me, that's a sacrifice I would be willing to make, and I would definitely say that. So my recommendation, and again, you can say, back this up or not, is I would say always go with at least a solid wood top, laminate sides and back, save yourself there. If at all possible, I would lean on that.
Yeah, can I show you something? I have my
Do
first
it,
Martin.
please.
You want to see it?
I'd love to see this. I'd love to.
My parents got me this Martin before I played any bluegrass. Usually it doesn't have any strings on it, and I got it, I don't know, maybe when I was 15 or 16. And I played this guitar as I transitioned sort of into becoming a bluegrass guitar player. You can notice there's one problem with it. It's missing a big chunk right here. I don't know what happened.
Cut away.
Maybe that was a mistake at the factory or something.
You can't play bluegrass on that. I don't know if you know this or not. I'm just kidding. That's not true. But there are people that would tell you that.
They would. And this is one of those HPLs, as we mentioned, right? This is a Mexico-made Martin that has the high-pressure laminate. I don't know what models they still make. Maybe I assume this one still exists. Maybe it doesn't.
I want to say they put this in that X series. I think they're still making the X series and doing that. Yeah. So anyway, yes, keep going.
But this guitar, served me great. I probably played. I know I played hundreds of gigs with this thing, and it never exploded or anything. It did just fine. So if you are looking to get started with bluegrass and this is your price point, this is what makes sense for you, you don't have to feel bad about that. It's
no,
what
absolutely
I played.
not. I would agree with that 100%. There are great. Let's take a step backwards. We're talking about what we think should be in here, but I want to point this out. I've said this from the very beginning. I think you can learn to play on any instrument. This whole idea that you cannot learn to play guitar unless you get a certain level of instrument, I think is absolutely ridiculous. Our heroes, Doc Watson, I guarantee you, the story is his guitar was almost unplayable to most anybody else.
Yeah.
And if you say that he couldn't learn to play on it, there's proof here. We know that there is proof. Most of our heroes got a hold of some instrument that in today's standard would have been almost impossible to play. And I agree that I think it's hard to find an absolutely unplayable guitar in this day and age. That some of the lowest price points are coming out with great instruments that would surprise us. I'm a little older than you. I'm a lot older than you. But I remember even when I was a young kid, there were guitars that were extremely tough to play. It could be done. We had a bunch of us that did it, but it did make it tougher. And so when we take the step back of saying you can learn to play on anything, I would always say, though, push yourself as far as you possibly can. Because to me, the things that kind of inhibit people from becoming successful guitar players are, how hard is it to play? If it hurts your fingers and it makes it so you can't get the notes and things that you want to hear, you're less apt to practice. You come up with the excuses of not doing it. I always say it's like joining a health club. Everybody wants to do it for the first 3 months. And then we all look for excuses to not go. Yeah,
Yeah.
today it's the weather's bad outside. I don't feel like doing it. And these are excuses that are going to creep up on you. Again, if that's hard to play and hurt your fingers, that's an excuse. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying that there aren't people that push through that, but that's a barrier that you're going to fight your way through. Number two, if it doesn't sound the way you expect it to sound. And I'm sure you understand that. When you get an
Yeah.
instrument that fires up and sounds the way you think it should, you want to play it. It's just the way it is, When I get a guitar that does something unique and different, I play it more than the guitars I have, and I got great ones, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's funny how
that's
that
another
works.
excuse.
I think the first guitar that I played was my great grandfather's Kalamazoo. I think it was 1933. It's in the back there too. Yeah, it was unplayable at the time. It desperately needed a neck reset, and I learned all of my first guitar stuff on that guitar. And was it a little miserable? In hindsight, probably. Would have
Well,
been
when you got
nice
that
if
first
I had.
guitar that played better, though, didn't you feel like you were more successful as a player? Like it was easier to get
Yeah,
what you wanted out of it?
yeah, definitely. And I could play all the things that I wanted to play on the next guitar too.
Yeah, it was a lot easier. So yeah, I think those are the kind of excuses. And I hate to say this because I know everybody kind of poo poos this idea, but I honestly, how it looks is a huge factor for anybody. If you're a cutaway fan, I know we were talking about your cutaway and how that the bluegrass straight ahead people kind of look at that and kind of dismiss it. But the fact is, if you like that cutaway, I say get a cutaway. And I do
Yeah.
think for a lot of our flat picking type of people, the cutaway has become a little bit on the unnecessary side for most of what we're going to be playing in the bluegrass flat picking world. So it becomes more of a look thing. And again, I have this. I will absolutely admit to this. When I get a guitar that I love the way it looks, I open the case. I'm excited about it. I want to get it out. I want to stare at it, and then I want to put it on my lap and play it and admire it and just enjoy that. I can't quantify how good that is. For me as a player,
Yeah.
that means I spend more time with it. It means I do more. I practice more.
You'll find a lot of bluegrass guitar players too will have slightly odd choices in their instruments too. You won't. It's not like everyone has the D28 or the D18. There's a lot of people out there that play slightly different stuff. And me personally, it's funny we're ragging on the cutaways. I own several. You can see them back
Yeah.
there. One of them, or both of them, I've gigged with a lot. And my, daily driver isn't a 28 or an 18. My daily driver is a 35.
There you go.
So yeah, you'll find slightly different choices. If there's anything I would add to this conversation, it's that we're kind of speaking a lot to people that are that are maybe on a budget or thinking carefully about some affordable guitars that they can get into with.
Sure.
There are people that are beginners out there that have a little more spending power, and to those people. Maybe some people will disagree with this, but I would steer them away from the vintage guitar market. And that's not
I'll
because
agree with
vintage
that.
guitars aren't great, but it's because if you have a little more knowledge, you'll probably have more success in the vintage guitar market. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to get into bluegrass, let me buy this 100-year-old guitar, maybe pump the brakes a little bit. You can buy a nice
would agree.
guitar. Maybe don't buy the vintage one, though. You don't know what work it needs.
Well, I think that's something definitely worth discussing. Man, vintage guitars, I have yet, well, I can't say yet. It is rare that I see a vintage guitar come into the shop or into my hands that is in perfect working order. In fact, the majority of them, especially if they're for sale or available as purchase, this is something that they're going to have, that hasn't been played. This was my grandfather's. This was my, whatever. And it's been sitting in a closet somewhere. And we all know what wood does. We know what this experience of, how to take care of it, all that kind of stuff. And it will warp and crack and do things. They all do. And unless they have lots of loving care, an 80 to 100-year-old guitar is going to have issues. And again, we just discussed all the bad things that are going to, come out of that as far as you as a player. If it's hard to play, if it doesn't do what you want it to do, you're absolutely correct. If you're absolutely certain you're dealing with a dealer that has gone through this and you got a trusted person that you're working with and you find something you fall in love with, go for it, if you can afford to do that. That's absolutely worth it. There is definitely power in vintage guitars.
If you're rolling down to the dollar hauler and you're buying a Martin off Craigslist, maybe think twice.
I would definitely think twice. I would recommend a third time, in fact. It would be really, really smart of you to at least give that third glance. In fact, there's a good chance you may not even have a Martin. You just never know. Anyway, but yes, that is definitely there.
I've seen some great knockoff Martins.
I've seen some really not great knockoff Martins come into the shop. That's always a shameful experience, by the way, when some guy comes in and says, I bought this guitar, I got this great deal on this, and I have to go, I hate to tell you this is not what you think it is, and you sadly paid about 3 times more than what it actually is worth. Those are hurtful conversations. Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, that's tough. Although if you know that it's a fake and it's being sold at the price of a fake, and that is funny to you, I mean, more power to you. I'm not going to stop you. But
is that your sense of humor, Marcel?
It is. I think it would be very funny to have the Martin logo and then these super sharp corners on that stock.
It can be done. I think we have just now officially created the Marcel model, and we are going to be building that version coming out soon. It'll be great. You're going to love it.
Yes, perfect. Stencil, spray paint.
Anyways, I think we totally got off subject here. Other recommendations for a great intermediate guitar. I know we talked about laminates versus solids. Getting into a laminate back and sides, solid top, definitely worthwhile doing. Favorite wood choices? What do you think in acoustic or flat pick world?
Yeah, a lot of people go for the mahogany or the rosewood for the back and sides. Spruce top, of course, just like you said.
Yep. It's usually, those are the most powerful. It seems like most modern flat pickers tend to lean on the mahogany nowadays. Are you still finding that? I mean, I'm a rosewood fan, but I would say that majority of my guitars have leaned in mahogany lately.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's going, but who knows what the staying power of that is. Sort of these trends happen sometimes where it seems like everyone's doing one thing or another. And so I'd probably go for what you like because the rosewood versus mahogany debate, it's a deep hole. you don't necessarily want to go down in there. People got all kinds of opinions, and sometimes they're the opposite opinions. People will say, oh, one's way brighter than the other. And sometimes you play these guitars, they don't agree. You kind of have these strange experiences. So maybe don't get wrapped up in that conversation too much.
You may have no choice. It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
I do have one of my favorite recommendations for one, and I'm going to grab it real quick. Since we're grabbing other guitars, I'm going to set this one aside. This has become my favorite, and then you can tell me your experience with other ones you see. I'm going to excuse my cables and whatnot here as I grab this. I'll come back into frame here in 1 second.
Don't bang it on anything.
Right. I'm going to try not to. This has become my favorite recommended guitar for an intermediate price tag. Now, this is above some people's beginner guitar, and I expect that to be the case. This is the Eastman E1D and has become one of my favorite, most recommended guitars, and I can tell you the big reasons why. This is a Dreadnought guitar. It is a Sapele back and side, which is a close relative to mahogany. It does have a solid spruce top, and it's all solid actually all the way through. So this does gain you that. It does have an 1 3/4 nut width, which tends to be preferred among flat pickers lately. I'm seeing more of that, but there's a lot of 11/16. Are you an 11/16 person? You're a half.
No, actually, my main guitars are both different.
Are they different?
And
I agree with you. My main guitars are both different, so I'm less of a fussy nut about the neck widths. I just more want it to be comfortable to play.
yeah.
So, but this one does tend to have a very comfortable one. They're all hand built, hand voiced. You can pick these up just over the $500 mark for an all solid wood guitar. Have lots of power. And I would not be afraid to play this in an open jam session. As a professional, I've taken one of these guitars actually out and played with it and used it. I would have no issue with that. Again, it does kind of cut some corners. It's kind of more plain. The satin finish and open pore finish, those kind of things that save on so much cost, but give you like the meat and potatoes of what to me a good intermediate level flat pick guitar would have. So this has kind of been my favorite. I know that the X series that you have with the HPLs from Martin, absolutely great guitars. They're going to be set up to play a lot like a Martin. It's a fabulous guitar. It will come in a little bit higher price tag than this would. I know it's kind of frowned upon in the bluegrass circles, but the Taylor, what do they call those now? Shoot, I can't even think of what they're called. The Academy series. We did some videos on it. We've done a few reviews of those. But also, let's talk about, I know you see this, one of the other most recommended guitars that I've seen, some of the Recording Kings and the Blue Ridge guitars that have fallen in those. A little bit more of the mass produced. You've played quite a few of them, I bet, that have sounded absolutely incredible. I know I have.
Yeah, the
Thoughts on any of
Recording
those?
King, the Recording King. If you need examples of what can be done with those guitars, actually, Patrick Lundgren's YouTube channel, he plays them all the time. I actually think he's sponsored by Recording King. Do you know that?
Could very well be. I did not know
Yeah.
that, but
But
Yeah.
he's had several go through his hands. He had one that he kind of widened the sound hole, turned it into a Tony Rice box. They sound wonderful. They sound great. I will say that if you like a little bling, the headstocks on those Blue Ridge are normally very
They're
nice.
definitely
looking
a
too,
lot more.
if that's important to you. Yeah.
absolutely. Again, everybody got their look and their thing, and I have a hard time. We are dealing with a traditional music base that tends to kind of say these are the rules and this is our line of where we need to be. I'm not one of those people. I say do what you got to do. If you're happy with it, it makes you excited. More than anything for me, and I'm assuming for yourself, I want people to get excited about playing guitar. I want them to love what they're doing. And if you want to go outside the circle or outside the lines and do something that not everybody else is doing, I say go for it. We got a lot of guys out there touring right now with OMs and double O's and just killing it with those options. So, just because we're saying this is what the majority of people are doing, I don't think that's a necessity. So
100%. And if you show up with, any of these things that we're talking about that are slightly different or, just not a Martin maybe, because that seems to be so important to bluegrass musicians. As soon as you're at the jam interacting with other people and they can hear that you can play, no one says anything. No one cares. They just want to play music.
That's right. You always get the guy that
be
rips
social.
you all the time, but who cares? They don't matter. Just let him know that he spent 3 times as much as you did, and that's all you got to do. Then you go, I can buy more pizza. It's all good.
Yes, it's for that. Well, we know from, Dog and Tony Rice and Garcia that, it's fueled by the pizza. You have to keep eating.
That's
the
exactly
pizza.
right. It's the most important part. You need pizza. Pizza is the most important thing. Anyway,
So take that home. Get any guitar, but get, maybe a large pizza.
but take a pizza always. Jason, I think we're gonna have to redo our setup here now, and from now on, every guitar should come with a pizza. It at least makes it easier to bring it home. Because if you got a spouse or somebody at home that doesn't understand your want for another guitar, but I got a pizza, and
You distract them with the pizza. Yes.
Anyway, I think we've covered some cool guitars and things to get. in the end, we discussed, things that we think would be good options to put out there. But again, I want to stress, I truly believe you can learn to play flat pick guitar on any guitar that you want. I've seen guys do it on electrics. I've seen them do it on Telecasters and become a flat pick guitar player and then get their acoustic later on. And, if that's what fires you up, go for it. You may actually become a pioneer and we have flat pick tele world. I don't know.
That's right. More power to you.
I'm down. I've seen a video where Monroe played a pink Stratocaster, so I believe it can be done. Anyway, to me, a recap, I'd say the majority of people who are looking for a flat pick guitar, looking for a Dreadnought, these are good guidelines to kind of look for. I'd say, that's probably a good starting place. If you can afford an all solid wood guitar, go for it. You will never, it's going to continue to grow with you. It's going to continue to get better. Unlike the laminate, it tends to just kind of be stagnant. Once it's done, it's, grow in, it's pretty much, that's what it's going to be. So I would try to step into that, make sure it's comfortable, make sure it's played well. And then again, trust, hopefully you've got somebody that you can trust. We've covered this too. As a dealer for you, because hopefully they set it up well and give you the best playing opportunity to continue to grow, because I think that matters probably more than even the look or the sound, is the playability and making sure you're not fighting with it as much as possible.
For sure, for sure.
Well, there you go. Well, there's a couple options for you. Again, this has been a whole bunch of fun. We've discussed everything from pizza to guitars today, and I think we've solved most of the guitar world's problem when purchasing a intermediate beginner level guitar, and we've got it all here. So, again, thank you so much, Marcel. And we're gonna have to do this again. I actually enjoyed this. This was a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah, it's been good. We'll do another one.
Or 6 or 8 or 10. I don't know.
Who knows?
Anyway, again, if you have not yet checked out Marcel's channel, please do so. Join him over there. So much great information. And again, thanks for joining us here today at the Acoustic Shop. Thanks again, Marcel. Seriously, it was a whole bunch of fun. And we'll see you all next time.
Thanks for having me. See you all later.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, we actually got to do a video of Google's top 10 most recommended guitars under $800. And we have a link to that video. It'll be right here, and you can check that out. It was a whole bunch of fun. We kind of went through and rated it, me and Jeremy. See if you guys like that, and tell us, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I don't know. Either way, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.